Hello and welcome to Living Waters, where scripture meets life. This week, as we begin our new series on the often ignored sins, we shall begin with idolatry. Benjamin Glad, in his essay titled Sin and Idolatry, writes, "Idolatry, the worship of something other than God, is at the root of all sin, because sin seeks to steal glory from God, to whom alone it is due, and take it for the sinner." He writes, Adam and Eve were created in the Garden of Eden to rule as kings, priests, and prophets, bringing glory to a God, their Maker. Their sin was then a determination to bring glory to themselves rather than God. In short, they worshipped themselves rather than God. Whatever we treasure more than God, whatever drives our thoughts, actions, and ambitions, become our idol. Idolatry is a matter of our hearts. Tim Keller, in his book Counterfeit Gods, states that an idol is anything more important to you than God, anything that absorbs your heart and imagination more than God, and anything that you seek to give you what only God can give. The first commandment is not to have any idol before God. It is the same as the greatest commandment given by Jesus, to love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, and your strength. And Keller adds, we never break any of the commandments without first breaking the first commandment. So the key is to identify idols in our life. Often it is difficult because we don't want to expose our own idols even to ourselves. Joe Carter, in his The Gospel Coalition article, writes how to expose the idols in your life. He writes about examining these 8 areas of our lives, and he gives us some tough questions in these 8 areas to help us search into our own hearts and lives looking for idols. Number 1, he calls us to examine our imagination. What do you daydream about? When your mind wanders, is it to material goods like fishing boats and exotic vacations, or is it to intangible items such as fame of celebrity or the approval of your peers? Number 2, he asks us to examine our attention. Consider the time you would rather be doing something else rather than practicing a spiritual discipline. What activity would you rather be doing instead? Are there one or more time-wasting activities you regularly turn to when to avoid engaging in more productive tasks? Next one is to examine our finances. Most of us have discretionary or disposable income. That is the money left over after the bills have been paid. How do you spend your disposable income? For what material goods or services are you most likely to go into debt to finance? Then he calls us to examine our prayer life. How do you feel when God doesn't respond to your prayers in the way you wanted? Do you trust that He knows best, or do you become angry and bitter? Have there been unanswered prayers that have made you doubt God's goodness or made you want to turn away from Him? The next is to examine our relationships. What person do you love the most? What person do you most want to please? Do you have friendships or romantic attachments that lead you away from God? Next in his list is to examine our emotions. What do you fear most? What do you most hope for? What are you most passionate about? What do you desire most in your life? What makes you extremely angry or sad? What makes you extremely happy? Then he asks us to examine our concerns. What do you worry about? What makes you anxious? What do you most fear losing? And then he calls us to examine our past and future. He writes, if you had a time machine and could travel into either the past or the future, what would you use it to change? What makes you nostalgic? What are your biggest regrets in life? What do you most want to happen in the future? What would cause you to despair if it didn't come to pass? These 8 sets of questions will help us uncover the deepest cravings and desires of our hearts. And having done that, let us truly examine and see if those desires have God in the center, or is it our own self.